Stigmatization around mental health still exists. In the last several years, there's been an uptick in shared treatment experiences, specifically for those who were in treatment as an adolescent over the last 30 years. As a consultant working with young adults only, it's been unsettling to hear about the horrific experiences that some folks have described. As someone trained as a counselor, we were taught to do no harm. I lead with this for each client I work with. While recording this special parent series, over the last year, several parents have suggested I interview their young adults. The special parent series is noted as being just that. It's about the parent perspective only. I'm now branching out to launch the former participant series, extending the opportunity for former participants who feel comfortable talking about their journey, doing so on this podcast. No topic is off limits, and not all stories are positive. This series is meant to be honest, transparent, and real for each individual's experience through the treatment continuum. Please note that this special former participant series is the adult's perspective of their treatment experience during adolescence or as a young adult. This is merely one perspective of a single story, and it's important to know that names have been changed for the protection of the interviewee unless they have requested not to do so. These episodes may include details surrounding suicide, self-harm, substance abuse, including overdose, hospitalizations, psychotic episodes, and other traumatic experiences which include parts of the treatment journey. That includes working with consultants, being escorted by a transport company, wilderness therapy, and a residential treatment program. All that is to say, listener discretion is advised. Welcome to an episode with a former participant in treatment.
It's time now for the Success is Subjective podcast. Here is your host and therapeutic consultant for young adults only, Joanna Lilley.
Hi, and welcome to the show. If you're new here, I'm glad to have you. This podcast was formed to collectively build a bank of stories from normal people sharing their nonlinear paths. Unfortunately, social media paints a narrow picture of what success looks like, so I'm doing my best to spread the news that changing course is common, and you don't have to know what you want to do the rest of your life at 18. If you're a parent worried about your young adult and whether their path is leading them to success, you're in the right place. I'm a therapeutic consultant who works with young adults to connect them with resources that'll help them get back on a better path. So if you're curious, let's chat. You can schedule a free consultation through my website, which you can find the link for in the show notes. Today, my guest is Alexandra Carey. Alex is a 29-year-old, married, and proud parent to a 2-year-old. She's been sober for nearly 8 years, and she'll talk about how her recovery has given her purpose, stability, and the opportunity to help others. She works in the treatment field, connecting people to the right resources and representing a program that truly cares. Outside of work, she's rekindled her passion for photography, which was a creative outlet she loved before addiction and has embraced again now in sobriety. Let's not wait any longer. Here's Alex. All right, Alex, thanks for being a guest on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited. This feels like it's part 3, right? The first time we connected at the PIT conference last summer. And like, that was when you and I were like, whoa, we need to like stay in touch. Cause there's like, you're just like there's something about you as a human that clearly I was drawn to in terms of like your story and the work that you do. And so hence you being, I was like, can you please be a guest on the podcast? So I appreciate you taking the time out and being willing to share your story.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been really nice meeting you as well and connecting with you. We meet so many people in the industry, and every now and again you find a few people that you're like, I really connect with them. So yeah.
It feels like the more people you connect to, the like less that you're actually like aligned with or like.
Yeah.
But it's about the quality, not the quantity. Okay. Anyways, but we're not going to bash on our colleagues just right out of the gate. If I remember correctly, your story actually involved you being in treatment as an adolescent and then going back to get some care as an adult. Okay, so let's just jump in. Why don't you tell our listeners just briefly, where did you actually grow up? And then kind of what was the messaging that you were receiving about what you were supposed to be doing after high school? And then I asked that question, and I'm just saying, like, obviously we knew at some point in adolescence, like there was a pause or, an interruption potentially in your educational path. So just kind of want to hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was raised in a small town in Arizona, super small town. Everybody knows everything, and my mom probably knows where I was and what I did before I got home because somebody told somebody who told my mom. And that was just the way that I grew up. I had a ton of friends and I got good grades. And then there was just a point somewhere around like 8th grade to freshman year where I really started feeling like really misunderstood and started trying to fill some type of void or whatever that looked like with friends or going out or going to parties. And again, in a small town, there's not a whole lot to do. There's not a ton of extracurricular activities. There's no swim team. There's no gymnastics. There's the woods in the, like the forest and the trees and bonfires and alcohol. And like, that was it. So when I was younger, I kept, my mom lived in the Phoenix Valley area for a little bit and she moved me down there and that just got progressively worse for me. It was like the world was my oyster. I could get anything and everything. And I really just started having even riskier behaviors. I was driving. I had my own car. I had worked really hard and I bought my own car and I did all those things. I was really smart, but I just started getting really distracted. I don't know exactly why that is. I could probably chalk it up to a bunch of different reasons and things that I had gone through as a child that I just thought was normal, but maybe it wasn't. And then I had come to a point where I felt like being in the Valley area was the problem. So I'm going to move back to Shola with my dad. And when I got there, same thing happened, right? I just went out, I drank, whatever. So that was the point where I think my parents didn't know what to do. And they just ended up sending me to an adolescent treatment center when I was 17.
All right. So talk us through that, because I know that when you and I briefly chatted before, that was like, ooh, this is, whatever. We got like what's the warning sticker, like warning label kind of leading to this part of your story. So talk us through kind of what it was like being in treatment as a 17-year-old.
Yeah. So that was interesting. So I think that my parents did not know what to do with me. They just listened. So I had gotten in trouble. I got like a minor in consumption. I got shoplifting. There was all these things that I was doing when I was a teenager that were just like not good. And the probation department like recommended I go to this program called Mingus Mountain Academy. So my parents didn't like look into the reviews and read about it and make sure that this was an honest, ethical program. They just said, okay, well, if that's where you think we should send her, that's where we're going to send her. And looking back on it today, understanding and knowing how much I know about treatment, because not only have I gone as an adult, but I work in it and have for the last 5 years, it was not a good experience at all. It was very trauma causing and it was very shame based. And so I did not thrive in that environment. Instead of, hey, we made bad choices, this is how we can make better choices, it's you are bad. And they labeled you every week like this positive or negative. That was your force field. And it just felt very shame based. I remember writing in my journal saying, I don't even know who I am anymore. And I just vividly remember that feeling of just like, there's a show on Netflix that I can't watch, but it's about these type of programs. And I remember not too long ago when it came out, I saw the ad over top of the screen saying, am I good enough to go home yet? And it was like a gut punch. That's like exactly how I felt. When am I going to be good enough to go home? And it was all about just acting right and being robotic and like doing the right things. And it was a very much like a shame-based culture. So you would have to like intervene other kids. And so it's really other kids that are telling each other what to do. It's just it's an interesting model, but it's definitely not trauma informed at all. I can still hear girls screaming from restraints. I remember when they used to like restrain or they would have that type of incident happen, they would have everyone close their ears and cover their eyes. And it was just a very much like horror film type of experience. And I remember not knowing, and my teacher had like walked us past a girl being restrained, and that image is burned in my mind forever. So a lot of these kids that were there were sent there through the jail system. And when they would get there, they'd be like, send me back to jail, because it was horrible. I don't remember very many good experiences about it, but I will say that although I followed every single rule, I did everything that you told me, because the thing about me is like, I'll do what you say. I still was there 5 months. So to me, I also believe that they were using up whatever benefits they could get from me. So that was my experience.
Woof. I mean, I love how you like front loaded this too, to say like having been in treatment as an adult, or like, you know, like getting support for yourself now in your like adult years, and also working in the treatment space for over 5 years, and knowing what good quality treatment looks like versus a not trauma-informed behavior mod adolescent treatment program. No doubt that just sounds like more traumatizing. You going in, you walked out with more trauma than you went in with.
Oh, yeah. I was 17 when I got out. I was a few months shy of turning 18, and within 6 weeks, I got my first DUI. So I remember leaving the program, getting home, waking up from a night terror that I was still there, and immediately trying to drink those feelings away. It was really, really hard. And again, knowing what I know today, right? Because back then I didn't know what treatment looked like. So when it was time for me to get treatment again as an adult, because that most certainly didn't solve any issue I had. And so I definitely needed more treatment. And when it was time, I was petrified.
Yeah.
I mean, I was running from it. And I remember my dad getting on the phone and being like, it's not like Mingus. You're an adult now. It's not like Mingus. And finally I was like, are they going to lock? It was just so scary going in. And I think that that's like such an important piece when like looking for treatment, especially, you know, just recently learning more about what ed consultants do and, you know, what that looks like. It's like, it'd be so great if more parents knew about this, because it may save a trip or a few to treatment, because they're going to have to go back if they go to the wrong program. I mean, I'm definitely an example of that. And so it was just a shot in the dark, just trying to find me whatever help. And I know my parents meant well, and today they feel awful about it, but you know, it is what it is.
Well, you know, I mean, that's their own guilt that they need to work through. But I think it also speaks to, and I'm kind of jumping ahead, but where you are now is not where you were then. So there's obviously like we had to fill in the gaps. So you just kind of drop this bomb 6 weeks after Mingus, you get your first DUI, and then your dad's chasing you down to be like, you got to go to treatment as an adult. Like, how do we get you there? You don't even have to name where you went, but just like talk us through at what point did treatment look different for you? And like, we want to eventually get to like, well, and what are you doing now? You know, like that kind of stuff. Cause I want to highlight, just because people go to treatment doesn't mean their life is completely derailed.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And this is something that I was told early on, is that like nothing is a waste of time if you learned from the experience. And that's most certainly like my experience. So I got a DUI when I was 17, my parents ended up like, you know, trying to get me to do online school, just keeping me like locked in because they didn't know what to do. And I ended up going back to the Valley area and experiencing, you know, I turned 18, and it was like when you're a kid and you're like, I cannot wait to be 18. And I could not wait to be 18. So again, I just went kind of crazy, the drinking, the partying, all the things. And I ended up having to have some surgeries, and that introduced me to opiates and painkillers and things like that. And unfortunately, I went deep into an addiction to opiates and alcohol. And so when I turned, I think I was 18 or 19 the first time I went to treatment, and as an adult, and that just looked like me truly like having nowhere else to go, and finally just being willing and open to going to treatment, even though I was absolutely terrified. And I walked in those doors and I experienced something completely different. And I'm so grateful for that experience, because although that wasn't the last time I ended up needing to go to treatment, it most certainly changed my perspective of what treatment does look like. And I was no longer scared. And so when it was time for me to get help, I knew where to turn. And so that seed was planted. And I think that's like an important thing to think about. When someone goes to treatment and they come out and they relapse, it's not a waste of time. You know, we can't control their addiction or their recovery necessarily. And sometimes it just doesn't work the first time. And I was super young. I was 19. And I think every summer I went on vacation to treatment after that. And finally, when I turned 21, it stopped. It stuck for me. Yeah, but that was kind of my experience. Just my summer vacay and treatment, because it's really hot in Arizona.
I'm trying not to laugh, but I just had to let it out there last minute. Just like, yeah, it is so hot in Phoenix in the summer. Okay.
Yeah, no one wants to be out there doing whatever when it's 110 degrees. Get me inside, please.
Literally. Oh my gosh, that is hell on earth for me. Okay, so, and obviously no knock at the place that you call home, but all right, so you said, okay, summer vacation treatment until 21. And then what was different?
Yeah, so, you know, I remember the first time going to treatment as an adult, and I remember just not being honest with people while I was there. I remember just faking it to make it and doing whatever they told me on the outside, but not being transparent with what's going on the inside. And, you know, during phone time, I'm like making an appointment for my pain management clinic. Like, I just didn't take it seriously at all. And so a couple times, you know, the next couple of times, I remember the following time I really tried to stay sober, but I was unwilling to take all the suggestions. And so I just kind of still ran the show and did what I wanted to do. And that just didn't work out so well for me. And then I ended up going to treatment again in 2017. I had just turned 21 and I went to treatment in California. And some of these programs can sometimes be like a mansion style, like so beautiful, like, you know, and really it's not that great. It's like a trash can sprayed with perfume. And that was my experience. So I went to treatment. I didn't take it seriously. I was not honest. I wanted to just, you know, do whatever. And I think I made it like 4 months and I went straight back to Arizona. I relapsed and I ended up getting on life support 3 days after I relapsed and waking up. And I was alone. I was completely alone. And then it took me a couple of months that time. I think it was July 1st on Friday, I'll have 8 years. So July 1st of 2017 to September 11th, 2017. And in that time, I ended up on life support, ended up overdosing for the first time and being saved by Narcan. It was really, really scary. And so this time I walked in and I was the most honest I had ever been. I walked in and said, this doesn't work for me. This never has worked for me and it's not going to work for me. So instead of like the people pleasing or like doing whatever I thought you wanted me to do, I was just honest. I was like, this is like, it's just not going to work for me. And about 10 days in, I tried to leave and someone stopped me and I said, you know, I'm just in a lot of pain. And they said, that's something we could work with. And that was the first moment I remember feeling hope in that moment. And finally being willing to be honest. And so what that looked like for me is being honest about everything, right? This is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm thinking. And I had gone to a program that was completely 12-step based. There was not a ton of therapy. It worked for me, but I think that that's an important aspect to look at, is really getting the therapy you need, because you know, it did what it needed to do for me. I stayed sober and I had success and I started building my life and completely rebuilding my life, because I really walked in with pretty much nothing. I had no clothes. I had no car. I lost my license. Everything was gone. And I was just like, all right, whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do it. And about 2 years sober, I remember feeling like looking around and seeing like, you know, all the success. I was managing a sober living. I was doing great in life, but I just felt so broken and so alone still. And that's when I realized that like there's more to this, right? There was always more to this. And so that made me start seeking outside help and really getting an understanding of like what that looks like. And my mental health was like super important. And yeah, so I got some help with that, and I've been able to do some just like really amazing things in my recovery. I got sober when I was 21 years old. So if there's anyone listening to this that's a parent of a 17-year-old or 18-year-old, and you're like, when is this going to end? I got sober when I was 21.
Mm-hmm.
I've been sober 8 years, almost. On Friday, I'll have 8 years. And yeah, my life is very different today. I mean, I have an amazing husband. I have a 2-year-old son that I went through IVF to have. We got married in 2021, and we had like 200 people there. And I just remember I remember leaving there sobbing because 8 years ago, I had no friends and no one wanted to be near me. And now we had 200 people drive to my destination wedding 3 hours away to watch my husband and I get married. And that was so incredibly special for me. And like life isn't always like easy, right? I ended up going through a trauma program, which I know we connected on when I was 7 years sober. So last summer. And that was super healing and super helpful for me. And it was really challenging because, you know, there were some dark parts of my past that I was unwilling to look at for so many years. And I became incredibly willing to just face those dark parts of me and finally heal them. And there was, you know, a lot of scary things I had to take a look at, but in turn, it really, really genuinely helped me. I had suffered like a severe trauma when I was not sober, and I was a victim of a really serious crime, and I just got the courage last year to like work through it, and finally got the photos that the police took of me and brought them out into therapy. I did EMDR. I did 36 hours of individual therapy in a week, and I just said let's heal. And I think what motivated that for me was that I met with a therapist once, and she said, yeah, I used to treat kids, but now I treat adults because I realized a lot of times as parents, we have untreated trauma. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to go work through this. I can't. And I'm looking at this like beautiful child I have, and I'm like, it's time. So I went through that, and it was really good for me. And it definitely provided a lot of healing for me. But I work in treatment today. I do outreach for treatment. So I get to connect people with the right care, which is such a beautiful thing because for so long, you know, no one knew what to do with me, you know, and so I try to be that bridge for people.
Well, and just so folks know exactly where you are working and what you do, why don't you give us that little blurb? And then I have one final question, which is well, maybe two. We'll see. But fill us in. What are you doing?
So I work for Pinnacle Peak Recovery, a treatment center in Scottsdale, Arizona. And as I mentioned, a big part of my treatment was I either got poor treatment, no trauma, just 12-step, whatever that looked like. And so what's really great about the program I work for now is that they provide like all the trauma modalities. They really look at treatment through the trauma and are able to help people who are struggling with mental health or struggling with substance abuse challenges, and really just kind of treating the whole person instead of just like one individual thing or behavior modification or just 12 steps. So it's great.
And we'll make sure that we actually have your contact information too in the show notes. So if anybody wants to reach out, whether it's to learn more about Pinnacle Peak or just to connect with you, we'll make sure that they have the ability to do that. So
yes,
contact in show notes. Okay, two questions. Okay. First one, having heard your story, like adolescence leading to being only a day and a half away from 8 years sober, do you see yourself as successful?
Yeah, I do. I think that we need to be proud of ourselves, and we need to take a look in the mirror. And every year when I get to, you know, remember where I was at, I would consider myself very successful. I mean, I mean, I have an amazing family and amazing friends. And sometimes people are like, wait, you struggled with addiction? And I'm like, that is the goal. No one could ever tell unless I told them, because of the way my life looks today, which is great.
Yep. Okay. Well, okay. Last question. Now this is rapid fire. Actually, I really want to sit with that for a second. I'm going to go back because you just hit the nail on the head too, about how a lot of people in this world, and this is like an actual, like, it's a true testament to who you are now and the journey that you've been on. But sometimes people suffer significantly. Obviously, you're not in active addiction right now, but sometimes when people are suffering, they mask it really well until it gets to the point where now all of a sudden you're, experiencing mass traumas, or you're getting a DUI, or you're, like it really feels like you kind of like light your world on fire. So it's a double-edged sword, what you just said, or at least I'm thinking, right? For some folks, we want to present outwardly like we've got it together. And for those that are in recovery, like that is the goal. And for those of you that are suffering right now, like remember that it's okay to be fully honest and get the help that you need so that what you're putting out into the world is authentic.
That's the only time treatment and recovery worked for me, was when I was like, this is what's on the table. This is what's triggering me. This is what's bothering me. I kind of want to use right now. I don't think this is going to work for me. Those things are what saved my life,
Well, I wouldn't have known that you were in recovery had you not said it.
Well, that's great. That's what I'm going for, I'm an open book. If people ask, I'll talk about it. But it's always so funny when people's heads turn and they're like,
like mine right now.
You have like a opiate addiction? Like, this is bizarre. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm going for, you know?
Okay, so last question. And you kind of hinted at it based on your story, but I just want to ask if there's another piece of advice that maybe you will give to somebody right now. I work with a lot of young adults that have had treatment in adolescence, and they are really having a hard time like working through the idea of going to treatment as a young adult is going to, they don't think it's going to look different than what it was like in adolescence. So if there's one piece of advice that you can give to a young adult right now that's listening to this, or even a parent of a young adult that's having a hard time wrapping their head around, is treatment truly going to look different for my now over 18-year-old? What imparting advice would you give to that person or that parent right now?
I would say for the person struggling to wrap their mind around going to treatment as an adult who had a poor experience as a kid, I would just tell you that there is good treatment out there, and it's very different. And I think walking into an adult treatment after having that experience, it was really reassuring for me to find out that the doors are unlocked. Nobody's forcing me to be there. This is my life. If I absolutely hate it, I can turn around and walk out the door, and everything, there's just much different experiences out there. And for a parent, I would say validate them in that experience that they had. Help them understand that, like, you see that maybe their experience was poor, because I think that's what helped me when my dad said, hey, it's not like Mingus. It made me really understand that he realized how hard of a time I had there, and he doesn't want me to have that experience again. So I feel like getting in the trenches with them to let them know that, like, I'm sorry that it was your experience, but I'm going to help you get to a different place. And just knowing that you're on their side.
Well, Alex, thank you for carving out time to share your story, to impart some advice, and just for, showing up, being you. So people that may not know you can hear and get a sense, hear you and get a sense of who you are. And so I am forever grateful that you took the time to share a part of your story.
And thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
That's it for this week's Success is Subjective episode. We want to thank our guest for joining Joanna on the show this week and for being willing to share your journey. This podcast would not exist if it weren't for people such as yourself. Stay tuned for our next episode, where you can bet it'll be another amazing human sharing their personal story with the world. Make sure you check out the show notes, where you will find contact information, website details, and all social media for our guest. If you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, you can email Joanna at lilleyconsulting.com. Be sure to check out the lilleyconsulting.com website for additional resources outside of podcasting. Now, if you're listening to the show on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe. And while you're at it, feel free to leave a review. You can also download to listen to the Success is Subjective podcast on other popular podcast apps, such as Audible, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio. Thanks again for listening in, and remember, there is no single path through life. Success is what you make it.